Okay.
We gonna go with LAX, the Latin American Exchange, bro. Look, that's one of my picks right here, man. Of course, you got Conan, who was the mouthpiece behind the group. You got Eddie Kingston, who was a part of the group at one point in time. Then you got the OGs, man. You got Hernandez, you got Homicide. Then you follow up with the new generation. Like I said, you got Kingston. And then you got formerly known as Proud Powerful Santana and Ortiz, bro. All three iterations of LAX, man, went on to become tag team champions. All right, with that being said, man, before I get into whether I say they're overrated or underrated, man, let me kind of just go over a few things, man. And I really, really, really want to highlight the fact that in the original LAX, you also had Apollo, who was part of LAX, man, before, him and TNA and that whole thing fell through. But again, LAX, the reason I chose this group was let's step away from LAX first. Let's talk about Conan. Conan has been a huge player, like going back to the WCW days and so forth, but he's been a huge player, man, when it pertains to exposing Latino or Latin wrestlers to the American mainstream. When you go back to people like Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, and then of course, you got Hoovy and Psychosis and so many others, man, that have stepped through the ropes. And then you
Ultimate
fast
Dragon
forward.
Ball and all them guys. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. To me, you can't say Latino wrestling or especially on the mainstream stage, man, without acknowledging Conan and what he's done for the business, kind of being that mouthpiece. And even though Conan never really got over like some of the other guys and girls he's the represented and brought into the business, again, his name's attached to it. You go back to Rey Mysterio's Hall of Fame speech when he got inducted, Conan was there, and hey, bro, his name definitely holds weight in the wrestling world. Now let's talk about LAX, man. LAX to me broke the mold because it wasn't all Mexican, it wasn't all Puerto Rican, it wasn't all Cuban or whatever. It was you had literally a collection of Latin wrestlers, and I think, in my opinion, to me, stereotypically, when you think of Latino or Latin wrestling, a lot of people kind of associate that with lucha libre and that style and the Mexican style of wrestling. And that wasn't necessarily the case with LAX, man. LAX, because you had so many different, Latin cultures and backgrounds and styles. Like, everybody wasn't a Rey Mysterio. Everybody wasn't a Psychosis. I mean, you got Hernandez, big jacked ass. You got Mike Santana, big jack. You know what I'm saying? Then of course you got who am I thinking about? Oh my God. Uh, Not Hernandez. What's my other guy? The big dude.
Talk about
Oh,
I don't know.
Homicide. Excuse me. Yeah.
Homicide.
You got Homicide, the little guy. You got Hernandez, big jack dude, and then you got Santana. And you got Ortiz. So you kind of kept that big guy, little guy dynamic, man. But when I think LAX, bro, I think of some real life street brawlers, bro. Like you got guys that could do the flippy shit when they needed to. But LAX, I feel like, man, was just such a different dynamic, and I feel like they represented Latin wrestling on in such a way, man, to where it kind of broke that stereotypical lucha libre mold. Again, dude, when I think about LAX and their time at Impact TNA, I feel like every iteration of that group was legitimate. I feel like back in the Kingston era, I feel like back in the now known as Proud and Powerful, I feel like in that era, the original era, every version of LAX to me seemed legit. And I want to give Conan, his flowers and respect because we see how other groups and cultures are in wrestling, how you kind of play that stereotypical role and you don't really get that push, right? You
Mm-hmm.
got it with the Asian wrestlers, you had it, and you still kind of have it from time to time with the black wrestlers and then the Latino wrestlers, especially. I mean, we joke about the Mexicans, but we seen what that was. But I feel like even though you got LAX playing like, these tough Latin gangsters and stuff like that, their in ring never suffered. I feel like they got a chance to get over with the crowd, and they took advantage of it every single time. I mean, the crowd ate it up when LAX, finally hit the main stage. So to me, I want to say I don't feel like they're underrated. I feel like for what they were, they were perfect right where they're at. I would say maybe in the eyes of people who weren't well versed in wrestling outside of WWE or the main, stuff like that, you could say they underrated. But I feel like if you really paid attention to like professional wrestling as a whole, I think, man, you knew who LAX were, what they stood for. And I feel like, man, I feel like even though it could have been a little better at times, I feel like they were done right for the most part. I don't look at LAX as a team that was, held down or not really taken seriously or put in legitimate situations. What do you
um, LAX was cool. When it was Homicide and Hernandez, that for me, that's the LAX that I rock with. Like if I had to pick one or the other, and I like Santana and Ortiz. Don't get me wrong, I like them. I like Proud and Powerful. But if I had to pick a group, I'm going with the OG ones, the first LAX, that Homicide and Hernandez. Uh, I'm going with them because they were a true power and speed team. Because even for Hernandez, even for a big power dude, he was quick, and it kind of gave you that Bret Hart kind of Anvil kind of vibes.
think?
Her Homicide was kind of that quick dude that did a lot of the
Yeah,
wrestling, the high flying, all the other stuff. And Hernandez was the big dude. And every now and then
yeah,
he would go fly over the top rope, but
yeah, yeah,
he would, or do a suicide through the middle. But outside of that, he was the power guy. So they were cool for that. So I didn't have a problem with them. I did think, I don't know if it was just because of them injuries or storyline. Um, they weren't they were successful, but not long enough for me. Um,
hmm
to where it's like I don't want to I don't I think I want to say they're overrated but underappreciated. Um,
mm,
like they like I they were good as a team, but I don't know if they were the great, but I like that version. I like that version of LAX.
yeah,
The other half, I can't really speak to it much because I wasn't keeping up with Impact that much when they were around. Because by that time I think it was aces and eights and all that other BS, and then it just kind of went to a whole nother thing, and I
yeah,
just didn't really follow it. Um, so I can't say totally speak on everything that they did,
right,
but the
right, right.
original LAX, they did do some stuff. They had some good matchups. They had a nice little run, but they didn't really have nothing too like wowing. Like they I think they had a nice little run for like a few months, and then that was it. I think they won maybe twice. I think they won two times, and then they broke up, and then they split up, and then storyline kind of went to another way. So it's like if they could have stayed together, they could have really been like as when they were together, and if they could have stayed together, they were really good. But they didn't really, they didn't really put too much of a stamp on things. Sure, as far as being a Latin American, um, or Latino American wrestlers, and accomplishing what they accomplished. That is awesome. But um, just as a team, in the general grand scheme of things, uh, I wish they would have had a little bit more.
No, no, no. I mean, no, I agree wholeheartedly. Which is why, excuse me. Like I said, I feel like at the time, they were right where they're at. Now were they the greatest? No. Would they probably be in your top 10 or 20? No. But I feel like for that era of what it was, like, especially that original iteration, and you had a bunch of other, iterations. Of course, you had Diamante, you had, Hector Guerrero, and you had a whole bunch of other people who were in and out as well. But that
Mm.
I really feel like that original iteration, man, like you said, they really could have just kept them together and went a little further along with it.
Uh,
Then of course you had the OGs versus the new school, and then I feel like almost in a way it kind of got NW old, if I'm being honest.
It did. It did, and that's where it kind of lost the spectacle of it,
Yeah.
as far as who they were. Um, but as far as Santana and Ortiz, seeing what they've done, outside of Impact and then into
Yeah.
AEW, man, great team, like them, wanted to see more from them, but it's not enough for me to be like, man, they're one of my best. No, they couldn't get over that hump of being, just above average.
No,
But
no, no.
and it sounds bad saying that. Like that's the thing. Like it sounds bad saying that because I would watch these guys go in the ring with anybody,
Yeah.
anytime. So it's like, but when I gotta think about man, like they how much they didn't really have too much success. Like they had a little bit, but not to where to our satisfaction of what we knew they could have been.
You know what? I think that was very well said. That was well said. Like we knew what the ceiling was, and then it's
Right.
like, all right, damn, like because of whatever, they didn't necessarily get to where we in our mind envisioned them being. I got you. I got you.
Right. Right. And that's all that is. It's like, and like I said, I really liked LAX. Definitely rooted for them. Definitely like them. Yeah, like they had a moment in Impact, but it wasn't, man, when you mention them, it's like, oh man, damn, kind of forgot about it. It's
Yeah,
like, and I
yeah,
hate to say it like that, but thinking about them, it's like, man, I do remember, I remember liking them. I mean, because they put on some great tag team matches that I watched, and actually upset some of my picks when I thought they were going to lose, and they actually ended up winning. So it's like, hey, all right, these guys are legit. They good. I like this boy Homicide. I like this boy Hernandez. These dudes can go. They can go with anybody, but they just couldn't go further.
yeah. No, I agree. I agree.